that makes sense. The one that hits different with your host, Jesse Lee Hammonds. Let's get into it.
What's the truth? Oh, the truth in every fact. What's that spark? Oh, that part that brings you back. What's that light? Oh, that part that makes it clear. It's that part. Oh, the truth you need to hear.
Welcome back. I'm Jesse Lee Hammonds, and today we're taking a trip back in time. We're going to talk about something many of you may have heard of. You know, maybe if you've taken an economics class or just, maybe sometime in civics or something like that way back in the day. But it's a term. It's a term and a method and procedure, I guess, if you want to look at it like that as well. It's called horse and sparrow economics. And we're talking about that. I want to touch on that because we're kind of dealing with a lot of that today, or at least the current administration wants to go back to, that type of economics, which quite frankly didn't work for everybody. You see, whether you're shopping online, picking up groceries, paying your rent, or just trying to make ends meet, you and I, we're all living inside an economic system. And the ideas that built this system didn't just fall out of the sky. No, not just out of the blue. They were made. They were put together, they were crafted, they were remixed and packaged and sold to you and me, the general public. Now, some of those ideas are as old as the 1800s, literally. And believe it or not, they are still shaping your and my paycheck, our bills, and even our future to a certain extent. So today, we're pulling out the receipts. Yeah. Because, like I always say, it's not about who says it the loudest. It's about whether it's the truth or not.
The part that makes
it's
sense.
That part. All right.
That hits different with your host.
That's the name of the podcast, of course.
Let's get into it.
I should say. And so it's going to be about four different parts. Let's see where. Let's come through them right now.
That part that makes it clear. It's that part.
And let's see. We're going to be hitting the facts. And what the facts show both then and now, or about then and now. We're also going to do a fast forward and see how horse and sparrow became named by other names, of which you might be even more familiar with. And we're also going to take a look at what it meant for everyday people then and now. But we're going to kick things off with
politics, people,
a segment of just explaining where horse and sparrow came from. The idea of horse and sparrow economics goes back to the late 19th century, also known as the Gilded Age. Something, again, that the current administration really seems dead set on trying to get back there. Imagine, it's a time, and you just have to use your imagination, or you can even look it up for that matter. It was a time where there were railroads, robber barons, sweatshops, and no labor protections. Around that time, a journalist named John Sherwood coined the phrase, and the theory was simple. Feed the horse plenty of oats, and the sparrows will get what's left behind. Translation: if you let the rich get richer, if you make the horse get fat, or you fatten up the horse, eventually some prosperity will trickle down to the poor. I'm sure you're still visualizing that. I would understand it if you turned away. Because the visual of that is something. But something else, the reality of it is really something else. This idea became especially popular among the Republican Party at that time, which had evolved since the Civil War into a party closely tied to big businesses and industrial wealth. And you know what? It's a myth as well. We'll get to all of that. It was used to, it being the horse and sparrow economic theory there. It was used to justify policies that benefited the wealthy. And some of these might sound familiar. Tax breaks, deregulation, and crushing labor unions. Yeah, it's not something new. So we'll get to that. Now, it's important to note back then, there were no income tax for most of the 1800s. Something also familiar to you as far as today's news goes. The government largely funded itself through tariffs. Yeah, not through taxing individual incomes. And for whatever reason, the evil one is just stuck on that. He's just stuck on that. And again, we'll deal with this, because it was all a myth, and that was then, and this is now. As my mom used to say, and then others, I'm sure, last year's rain does nothing for this year's crop. She used to say it a different way, but that was basically what she was saying. But the idea was the same. Don't disturb the rich, because if you do, you'll hurt the economy and by extension, everyone else. So that leads us to the second part of all of this. So what it meant for everyday people then. So for everyday people, horse and sparrow economics was a disaster. Simple as that, plain and simple. While the Vanderbilts, the Carnegies, and the Rockefellers amassed fortunes that would make today's billionaires look humble. Shout out to Elon Musk. Most workers labored 12 to 16 hours a day, often in unsafe conditions for barely enough to survive. In cities, tenements were overcrowded, sanitation was poor, and diseases ran rampant. Shout out to RFK Jr. with what he's got going on these days, or wants to get going on these days. Children were working in factories. Families were losing limbs, lungs, and lives just to survive. Just to survive. But the message from the top was always the same. Be patient. Prosperity is coming. Just wait for it. Or in the words of the current evil one, there'll just be just a little bit of pain. No, don't worry. So now let's fast forward to the 20th century. After the Great Depression, America learned a hard lesson that unregulated capitalism and economic inequality can crash the whole system. That happened, and it can happen again. That's not a myth. So in the 1930s through the 1970s, we saw the rise of labor rights, Social Security, banking regulation, and progressive taxation. And what was the result of all of that? The middle class grew. The middle class grew. That's how it's done. That's how it was done. We can repeat that. But in the 1980s, something old made a comeback, just with a new name. Okay? And guess who the figurehead was at that time? That's right, President Ronald Reagan. He and his advisors started pushing what they called supply side economics, which was, again, the sheep's clothing for horse and sparrow. The idea that if you cut taxes for the wealthy and businesses, they would invest more, grow the economy, and create jobs for everybody. Right. In fact, Reagan famously said, a rising tide, let me see if I can imitate him. A rising tide lifts all boats. That was the best I could do. But underneath that, it was still horse and sparrow. By any other name, it was still that. Feed the horse enough and hope something falls to the sparrow. And the sparrow being any kind of bird, and of course, a metaphor for us, you and me, you and I. So let's look at the receipts. Studies show that trickle-down economics didn't create the broad-based prosperity that was promised. Here's what actually happened. Income inequality skyrocketed. Wages for most workers stagnated, while CEO pay exploded. The richest 1% captured a disproportionate share of the economic growth. And that's still going on. According to a 2012 study by the Congressional Research Service, no clear relationship exists between top tax rates and economic growth. Okay, did you hear that? No clear relationship exists between top tax rates and economic growth. In fact, when taxes on the wealthy were higher in the 1950s through the 1960s, the economy grew faster than it did under Reagan-era policies. Okay? And that Princeton study I mentioned earlier, it found that government policy overwhelmingly follows the preferences of the wealthy elite, not the average citizen. And as always with everything, and this should be a practice, a normal practice that you have, that I have. I'm going to put links to all of this in the bio, on a blog, and in a few other places there, so that you can easily get to the source of all of this information. I'm just not talking, out the side of my neck or anything like that. I'm actually presenting the facts, because there's truth in every fact. The bottom line, horse and sparrow was a myth in the 1800s, and it's still a myth today by whatever name. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Jesse, but what does this have to do with me buying groceries or gas or clothes for my kids, for that matter? In one word, everything. Everything. When tax cuts go primarily to the healthy, or should I say the wealthy, hopefully they're healthy, but when it goes to the wealthy, to governments, or shall I say the government, let's start that one more time. 2, 3. When tax cuts go primarily to the wealthy, governments have less money for things that help everyone, like good roads, healthcare, education, or even disaster recovery. Another target of Doge, to try to chop up and defund. And I'm talking about FEMA. As a matter of fact, a budget was just passed and no money was allocated for disaster preparedness or recovery. But and there was cuts for domestic programs and that sort of thing, and an increase in military spending. When workers aren't paid fairly, it forces more people into debt just to live now. But it also boosts corporate profits but shrinking real wealth for everyday folks. So this supply side, the horse and sparrow theory, again, it's a myth. It does not work, for, everybody. It might work for that 1%, or I'll even give it from the 1 to the 5, to perhaps even the 10%ers, but not for the rest of us. You see, when the gap between the rich and the poor grows too wide, history shows it creates social unrest, political instability, and economic crashes. And that's being predicted, as a matter of fact, by a number of economists today. So if you're out here or there grinding every day, whatever it is that you're doing, and you're trying to stretch your paycheck or just manage it, and wondering why it feels harder and harder to do so, it's not just you. It's the system. The system. And that system, it was built in part on a theory that said it was okay to feed the horses and let the sparrows hope for the crumbs. AKA horse and sparrow. AKA supply side economics. AKA Reaganomics. So the game has been the same for over a century. And knowing that, it changes, or it should change, how we see the promises made by our politicians today. Because the truth has a way of exposing the spin, no matter from whose mouth it's coming from. It's that part right there. That's it. It's that part. An OAG Media production. Be sure to like, follow, download, subscribe, and share the link with everybody you know. And remember, history not only reminds us of what happened in the past, but also shines a light on what's happening right now and what could happen in the future. So stay aware and stay awake.
It's that part, the truth you need to hear. What's the truth? What's the truth? Truth in every fact. What's that spark? That part that brings you back. What's that light? What's that light? Oh, that part that makes it clear. It's that part, the truth you need to hear. Truth in every fact. Truth in every fact. That part, that spark. Oh, you feel it in your heart. Oh, you feel it in your heart. It's that part with Jesse Lee Hammonds. Truth in every fact.